With today's technology, it's not unlikely that every single moment of someone's life is documented, like it or not. But that's a fairly new phenomenon, and throughout most of history, we needed to rely on scholars and scribes to do most of the documenting for us. And they certainly didn't cover everyone either, which has left some huge gaps in the historical record. Those gaps are present for some of history's most famous people, and when researchers start looking really closely at some of the biggest names out there, they sometimes find that they might not have existed at all. Let's look at some heavy hitters that might be entirely fictional. Sun Tzu. The Art of War has long been revered as the guidebook on how to properly wage war. So who would be more suited to write it than someone like Sun Tzu, an ancient Chinese military leader and warrior who knew how to fight and win? But now people wonder if Sun Tzu was real at all. Scholars currently know nothing about where the Art of War came from, only that it would randomly appear, usually on sewn-together bamboo slabs, for whatever military person or scholar needed it. There's no record of Sun Tzu promoting himself as the author, going on book tours, or anything of that sort. Even more telling is the fact that this great warrior isn't even mentioned in some of the most important military texts in ancient China. Some historians now believe Sun Tzu is a pen name, and the Art of War's contents are cobbled together from generations of Chinese military lessons, theories, and strategies. Considering how people worldwide are still reading it, it's clearly solid advice. It just probably didn't come from the mind of one single military genius. Kunta Kinte. In his Pulitzer Prize-winning novel Roots, Alex Haley poignantly wrote, "In all of us there is a hunger, marrow deep, to know our heritage." His own ancestral hunger led him to Gambia, where he said his own ancestor, Kunta Kinte, was born. Everyone is familiar with the story, but there's a debate about how much of Kunta Kinte's story is true. Haley famously had a strained relationship with the truth, but some historians have gone a step further and dismissed Kinte's backstory as simply implausible. Historians and genealogists have found a ton of evidence that contradicts much of what Haley wrote. Dates and geography don't match up, and when it came to research, Haley essentially told the story he wanted to verify. His source, an unreliable local villager, told him that yes, he was almost definitely right. That's not to take anything away from the impact Roots had on American perceptions of slavery. It also deeply impacted Gambia, where an island was named after Kinte and his birthplace became a tourist attraction. These effects are real, but there's a chance that Kinte isn't. Pythagoras. Pythagoras' influence on mathematics can't be overstated, but there's a growing movement of people who don't see him as merely the bane of freshman geometry class. Instead, they see him as a work of fiction. Everything we know about the man comes from outside sources, like his followers, a group known as Pythagoreans, who may have just made him up as a figurehead. There's even doubt that his mathematical breakthroughs, like his famous a squared plus b squared equals c squared, came from him or his followers. As some historians point out, Babylonian scribes were using some of his theorems in their everyday lives 1,000 years before he existed. Way to steal their thunder, Greece. One of the big reasons we'll probably never know the truth about this one is that the Pythagoreans were bound by a strict code of silence. It wasn't until Plato's writings, a few centuries post-Pythagoras, that we really got a glimpse into their beliefs and their sacred symbols. So there you have it. Even math class might be full of lies. Shakespeare. Despite all the writing, all the work, and all the portraits we have of Shakespeare, many people are convinced William Shakespeare was a pen name. Ultimately, we don't actually know much about the small-town bloke named Shakespeare from Stratford-upon-Avon. Even stranger is that when he died, he left a will. What wasn't in the will? Any mention of what would have been his life's work. Suspicious, right? So, who really wrote all that stuff? Plenty of candidates have emerged over the years, like Francis Bacon, Ben Jonson, and Christopher Marlowe, but those possibilities haven't stuck. There's another legitimate possibility with an obscure but brilliant Earl of Oxford. The theory says that Edward de Vere, whose surviving writings are in undeniably Shakespearean style, used an assumed name because playwriting was pretty lowbrow. On top of that, he was spilling all kinds of royal secrets and didn't want anyone to know it was him. When he died, his followers published his plays under the pen name of some random commoner named William Shakespeare, who died years back. It's kind of fitting that it sounds exactly like one of Shakespeare's dramas. Homer. Despite the popularity and importance of the Iliad and the Odyssey, their author, the Greek poet every English teacher makes their students read, remains shrouded in mystery. For one thing, Homer almost certainly wasn't the originator of these tales, which likely preceded him by about 1,000 years. He was simply the first to write them down, so we'll give him credit for doing all the hard work. But we still don't know much about him as a person. Some say Homer was blind, while at least one author argues that Homer was actually a woman. Other historians believe that Homer was not a single person, but rather a group of Greek scholars. And some get even more abstract, suggesting he's essentially the shared consciousness of an entire culture. That's heavy, and in the end, we'll probably never know the truth behind this one. Thanks for watching. Click the grunge icon to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Plus, check out all this cool stuff we know you'll love too.